All right, looks like Oklahoma Peak is going to start serving for this match, for this set. Number 18 is going to be serving for Peak. And the ball's away, up by 10, but it's out of bounds. Point for Peak. All right, number 18 serving again for Peak. Ball's in play, up by 22, over by 24. Up by 4, up by 22, over by 24. And a spike by Peak, point for Peak. Number 18 serving for Peak. And the ball's in play. Dig by 10, up and over. Up by 4, up by 9. 24 gets it over. Up by 4, up by 9. Over by 24. Up by 10, up by 4, over by 9, and touched by the Peak player and out of bounds. Point for the Aces. Great play there. Score is now 6 for Peak and 5 for Aces. Big smiles there, number 9. That was a great play. Number 9 is going to be serving. Number 9 serves. Ball's in the air. It's over, up by 9, up by 4, over by 24, up by 9, up by 4, 22, over by 4. And Peak didn't quite get it over the net there, point for the Aces. Tied game 6-6 with number 9 serving. It's served by number 9, ball's in the air. Up by 2, up by 24. 10's got it, up by 10, up by 4, over by 2. And Peak didn't quite get it high enough over the net, point for the Aces. Aces pulling ahead now, 6-7, number 9 serving. And good serve by 9. Ball's in the air. Up by 24. Up by 4. 2 bumps it over. Up by 4. Up by 10. Over by 22 and 24. And spiked over by Peak, and point for Peak. And served by Peak, up by 10, up by 4, over by 10. Good save there for initially bad hit. Blocked by 24, didn't quite get it over the net by Peak. Point for the Aces. Scores now 7 for Peak, 8 for the Aces. 24 coming out, 3 coming in. 3's going to serve for Aces. And the ball's in play. And we'll see. That was inbounds. It's going to be a point for Peak. Number 12 serving for Peak. And the ball's in play. Up by number 9. Up by 3. Over by 2. Touched by Peak. Up by 9. Up by 3. Over by 4. Blocked by Peak and back over. That's going to be a point for Peak. Number 12 serving for Peak. Oh, right into a hole there, not returned by the Aces. Going to be point for Peak. Number 12 serving for Peak. Up by 9, up by 2, over by 22. Up by 3, up by 2, over by 4, but it's out of bounds. Good play there, didn't quite make it. That's going to be a point for Peak. 11 for Peak, 8 now for the Aces. Number 12 serving for Peak. It's going to be up by 10, up by 4, and tipped over by 22. It's a good point for the Aces. Number 2 now serving for the Aces. And it was a bad serve, out of bounds. This is going to be point for Peak. Number 16 serving for Peak, scores now 12 Peak, 9 Aces. Okay, ball's in motion, up by 9, up by 3, over by 10. Good block by number 4. Up by, right into a hole there, point for Peak. All right, 16 again serving for Peak. Up by 10, tipped over by 4, right into a hole, point for the Aces. Scores now 13-9. Aces will be serving here. 22 will be serving for the Aces. Ball's away. Up by 3. Oh, looks like we have a net call here. That's going to be a point for Peak. Number 20 coming in for Peak. She's going to be serving. Score now 14-10. Peak leading. And serve is right into a hole. That's going to be another point for Peak. All right, 20 again serving for Peak. Ball's away. It's going to be up by 2, up by 4, over by 9, right into a hole. Point for Aces. All right, number 3 coming out for the Aces. 24 is coming in. Number 4 is serving. And number 27 is coming in. Number 2 is coming out for the Aces. Number 4 is serving. Ball's away. Up by 22. And it's just over the net and inbounds, point for the Aces. All right, number 4 serving for Aces, and the serve is short. Just didn't quite get over the net, point for Oklahoma Peak. Score now is 16 for the Peak, 12 for the Aces. Number 11 serving for Peak. And touched by 22 and out of bounds, going to be a point for Peak. Number 11 serving for Peak. And it was in, going to be point for Peak. All right, 11 serving for Peak. And that was out, so it's going to be a point for the Aces. Number 2's coming in. Looks like number 10 is going to be serving. Score now is 18-13. Aces trailing. Okay, up by 10. Up by 4. Over by 2. Up by, nope. Number 10 went for it but didn't quite make it. That's going to be a point for Peak. Yeah, on the Peak side, 15's coming out. And 19's coming in. Looks like 18's going to be serving. And the ball was out on that serve. Point for Aces. Scores now 19 Peak, 14 Aces. With number 9 serving for Aces. And serve is good, just over the net. Ball's in play. It's going to be up by 10. Up by 4. Over by 2, but it didn't quite get over the net. That's going to be a point for Peak. And the Peak side, 19's coming in, 20's coming out. 13 serving for Peak. And number 10 went for it, but didn't get any height, didn't get over the net. Going to be point for Peak. And on the Aces side, 27's coming in, 10's coming out. 13 serving for Peak. It's going to be up by 9, up by 27, over by 9. And tipped over by Peak. Looks like another net call. Peak's going to be serving. 13 serving for Peak. Up by 27, but didn't get enough height. Didn't just get it over the net. Going to be a point for Peak. 13 serving for Peak. Scores 23 Peak, 14 Aces. It's going to be up by 27, but didn't get enough height on it. It's going to be a point for Peak. 24-14. Aces trailing. Number 13 serving for Peak. Up by 27, but didn't quite make a good connection with the ball. And that's going to be game point for this set. 25-14 for the first set here in this third game of pool play here at Wichita Hoops. All right, players back out on the court for the second set. Looks like number 10 is going to be serving for Aces. Score is 4-4. All right, number 10 getting ready to serve here. And the ball's away. And, Peak tips it over. Aces weren't able to return it. That's going to be a point for Oklahoma Peak. 13 serving for Peak. Thirteen serves up by 10, but it's short. And number 9 wasn't able to get there in time. Give me a point for Peak. Score is now 6 for Peak and 4 for the Aces. .13 serving for Peak. And dig by 10, but it's out of bounds. Score for Peak. 27's coming in, 10's coming out. .13 serving for Peak. It's going to be up by 22. but it was short getting over the net. 8 now for Peak, 4 for Aces. 13 serving for Peak. And let's see how they called. It looks like they called that one in, so it's going to be a point for Peak. Nope, they called that out. Aces is going to serve. Number 9 is going to serve for Aces. Good serve by number 9. And it's over, up by 2, but it's out of bounds. Going to be a point for Peak. Number 12 serving for Peak. And number 9 goes for dig, but doesn't get there in time. It's going to be point for Peak. Twelve again serving for Peak. And that was in. Going to be another point for Peak. Okay, 12 serving for Peak. Up by 27, up by 2, up by 24, over by 2, up by 4, up by 22, over by 24, but it was out, point for Peak. Score now is 11-5 with the Aces trailing. Number 12 serving for Peak. Up by 2, up by 24, over by 4. And Peak tries to smack it over, but it's short. Doesn't quite get over. Ball goes to the Aces. 27's coming out, 10's coming in. Number 3's going to go serve. And the ball's in motion, but it's out of bounds on Peak. Point for the Aces. And number 3 serving for Aces. And on the Aces side, 13's coming in, 4's coming out. And 3 serving, the ball's good. Dig by 10, but doesn't get any height on it. It's going to be a point for Aces. And number 16 serving for Peak. Up by 10, up by 22, over by 2. Up by 10, but it's out of bounds. Point for Peak. And number 16 serving for Peak. Up by 10, or number 9 rather. Up by 3, over by 2. Tipped over by Peak, and a great save by the Aces there. Up by 10. Oh, just kind of lost it there in the front row. Didn't quite get it over between number 2 and number 13. Point for Peak. Number 16 is going to be serving for Peak. Score now is 15 for Peak, 7 for Aces. Up by 13 and over. Peak tries to tip it over, doesn't quite get it. It's back on the Aces side. Up by 13, up by 2. 13 goes for the kill, but doesn't get it over. Number 16 serving for the Peak. Up by 13. up by 3. 13 gets it over, but it's out of bounds. Point for Peak. 27's coming in, 10's coming out. 16 is serving for Peak. Ball's in the air, up by 9, up by 3, over by 13, and it's touched by a Peak player. Out of bounds. It's going to be a point for Aces. Score is now 17-8. Aces trailing. Looks like number 10's coming in, 27's coming out. Number 2 serving. And it's out of bounds on Peak. Point for the Aces. And a timeout being called. And players are returning back to the courts. Number 2 is going to be serving for Aces. And the ball's away. Up by 3, up by 2. Oh, but it's out of bounds. Going to be a point for Peak. And the ball's in motion, up by 10, up by 2, over by 10. And that was inside the bounds. There's going to be a point for Peak. Looks like we had a net call against Peak, so Aces are going to be serving. 22 now serving for the Aces. Ball's away, and it's out of bounds on Peak. Point for the Aces. And 22 serving for Aces. Ball's away. Up by 2. Up by number 9. Over by 13. Up by 2. Up by 3. Over by 13. Touched by the Peak player, out of bounds. It's going to be a point for Aces. Score is now 18 for Peak, 12 for Aces. Number 22 serving for Aces. And the serve's no good. It's going to go back over to Peak. Number 11 serving for Peak. Up by 13, over by 9, and out of bounds. Hits the back wall, but it's going to be a point for Aces. Looks like number 3 is coming out, 24 is coming in, 13 is coming out, 4 is coming in. Looks like number 4 is going to be serving for Aces. And the ball's in play. Going to be up by 4, up by 9, over by 24, but a good block by Peak. Score now 20 for Peak, 13 for the Aces. And number 18 serving for Peak. It's going to be up by 2, up by 4, over by 9, and it's in. It's going to be a point for Aces. And it looks like number 10 is going to serve for the Aces. And it's in play. The Peak doesn't get it over the net. Point for Aces. Score is now 20 for Peak, 15 for Aces. Number 10 serving. Ball's in motion. It's over. Up by 4, up by 10, over by 24. Good teamwork there. And the ball's out of bounds on Peak. Point for Aces. And number 10 serving. It's touched by Peak. Up by 4, up by 24, over by 9. And Peak doesn't quite get it over. It's going to be another point for the Aces. Having a good comeback here. We'll see if they can overtake the Peak. Number 10 serving for the Aces. Good serve. And the ball doesn't make it over the net on the Peak side. Point for the Aces. Score is now 20-18. Aces trailing. Number 10 serving for Aces. Ball's in the air. And it's out on Peak. Going to be point for Aces. Score is now 20 Peak, 19 Aces. A nice comeback here for the Aces. Number 10 serving for the Aces. And the serve is no good. It's going to go back over to Peak. Number 13 serving for Peak. Up by 10, up by 4, over by 2. Up by 27, up by number 4, over by 2. And it's out. Point for the Aces. Number 27 is coming out, 22 is coming in. Number 9 is going to be serving. 21-20, Aces just trailing by 1 point here. Up by 9, good save, up by 4. Number 2 gets it over. Up by 4, up by 22, and over by 24, but too low into the net. That's going to be point for Peak. Number 12 serving for Peak. It's up by 10, and they just can't quite get it back over the net. It's going to be a point for Peak. 23-20 now. Number 12 serving for Aces. And that was in. It's going to be a point for Peak. All right, number 12 serving. So up by 10, up by 2, over by 24. Good block by number 24. 24 tips it over and gets another point. Everybody's got big smiles. That was a great play. Score now is 24-21. Aces trailing. Number 3's coming in. 24's coming out. Number 3's going to serve. And good serve by the Aces. It's going to be another point for them. Score is now 24-22. Aces barely trailing. Number 3 is going to be serving again for the Aces. And the serve is good, and it's out of bounds on Peak. Now just down to a 1-point game, 24-23. Aces trailing by 1. Number 3 serving. Let's see if we can tie this up. Ball's away. And that's it. Peak gets another point. That's 25-23. Aces trailing by just 2 points in this set.